Hey, good morning, and welcome to episode 100 of Talking to Artists. So I'm pretty amazed that I got to 100, and I'm really grateful and thankful for everybody who follows the Talking to Artists, who listens, who contributes, and who has offered to come and be a guest on Talking to Artists when they don't even know me. So I really appreciate that a lot. So the reason, obviously, I originally started this was it had been on my mind for a number of years, but never really kind of got it together until COVID happened, really. And I realized that I really missed my community like so many other people did. So I thought, well, I'll start these casual conversations. I did a lot of thinking about how structured I wanted it to be, and a lot of recommendations that I should have the same questions and have some consistency. But I kind of realized I wasn't really that interested in doing that. I was more interested in having a conversation with people and seeing where it went. And I kind of modeled my interviewing style as you were on Tom Power from the CBC, because I just love how he is such an engaged listener. He really listens to what people are saying, and he reacts to what they're saying and continues the story. And I feel like often those conversations go into places where normally they wouldn't. So anyway, so that's kind of what I have tried to do. I've also had the opportunity to randomly reach out to artists who I don't know, like Kat Tesla, Julia Whitley Barnes, and just kind of said, hey, do you want to kind of be on my show? And it's been really cool how many people have said yes. And those are wonderful because it's allowed me to kind of expand my network. Once I kind of went through a lot of my friends, I kind of needed to kind of continue to reach out. And I'm still finding there's lots of people who ask to be involved, or people that I discover. And so that's kind of cool. So I thought for the 100th episode, I would do something a little bit different. Don't know if this will work or not. Could be short, could be long, who knows? But I thought I'd kind of open it up to questions that I've had kind of throughout the years, lessons that I've learned, some of my favorite episodes, which was originally the intent to choose some of my favorite episodes. And that was super hard because I've really enjoyed all of them. And I think fundamentally for me, what happens is that I really enjoy these conversations where I just don't know where they're going. And sometimes we kind of wander off into religious philosophies, or what it's like to be a mother, or balancing art with other jobs. And there's so many other things that I think have just been so rewarding to listen to. I've also had some misses, and I'm not sure why. Paula White Diamond, we did the interview twice, and for some reason it was not savable. Couldn't save it. Of course, we've had our usual tech challenges, which I guess is par for the course. Lori Mirabelli, the first time we had this crazy weed whacker guy, so the noise was so loud. I got a lot of complaints on my YouTube saying, look, this is really not good quality, and I totally agreed. So we did a second one, and when I tried to save it to YouTube or to Spotify for the podcast, somehow it was corrupt. So really sorry about that, because I've had such fabulous conversations with her. And then Jane Fleetwood Morrow, which apparently kind of just got cut off after 15 minutes, so I have rescheduled her, so that's coming up. So I thought I'd just kind of do a few of the lessons that I've learned in listening to these conversations, and also things that I've kind of tried to put into practice myself. So I think that for me, it's really helped me grow my practice, because you learn little tidbits of things along the way and you start to incorporate them into your own practice. For other things, I'm finding they're really fascinating and not something that I'm personally going to contribute into my practice, but that still means I'm growing as an artist and trying to be open-minded and really think about how the act of creating from other people's point of view, which I think has been really, really fascinating for me. So I think the first thing is really kind of to cultivate a strong work ethic. Actually, all of the artists I interviewed, they have a very strong art practice where they're really committed to it. Some people are working full-time jobs, but they carve out the time to do the work. Other people who are full-time artists, they have their business hours where they go in and they do the work, even if they're not feeling like it. There were a lot of tricks that artists learned in terms of trying to get yourself into the zone when you first go into the studio. Leave something half finished. For some people, it was kind of leaving themselves a list. For some people, it was just get in the studio physically. And do edges, or reorganize your studio, or clean your paintbrushes, or whatever it happens to be. But I think that's kind of been a really strong lesson for a lot of people. Obviously, practice your craft. Like, that's pretty obvious, and that's probably one of the easiest ones. But that kind of comes with the work ethic, like showing up to the job every day, getting your 10,000 plus hours in certainly is helping to allow artists to be successful. Originally, Talking to Artists was also about trying to understand a bit about the business of art. It's something that I'm personally really interested in, trying to figure out how to share knowledge and information for artists to be more successful in their business practice so that more of us can actually make a healthy living from selling your art. And I think that's been really critical. So a number of the artists that I've interviewed have done that successfully and are pretty financially successful, but also are still very... they're very inspired by the work they do, and they're very authentic in how they do it. And so some of this is, in terms of the work ethic, is not only the art practice part of the work ethic, but it's also the business part, which obviously is a lot more difficult to do, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to do that. But that means kind of, showing up to galleries when you're supposed to. And I apologize to Arda for not showing up yesterday. I was just really sick, but normally I try and do that. And following up with clients and kind of having some sort of a time allocated to do your business practice. The other part, obviously, is that a lot of the artists talked about finding your unique voice, and that sometimes requires a lot of experimentation. And sometimes it's hard to know exactly when you found that unique voice until you start to recognize that your work looks different than other people's that are out there. So that's kind of pretty powerful. Hire help where you can. This kind of really came from a lot of the artists who are quite established, who have been full-time for a long time, but really got to the point where they could not create fast enough. They were missing opportunities that they could have done because of the fact that they were also very committed to the business part of it. So when you get to that point where you can outsource, Claire Desjardins was a perfect example of someone who has a studio manager who manages a lot of the shipping and the packing and the scanning and the inventory and all that kind of stuff, which is super, super important, but is also something as an artist you can outsource. You can't outsource the work. Like, you're the only person who can do the work. So spend the time doing the work and outsource those things that you can outsource. Be resilient. I think that was a lesson we all learned, certainly during COVID. I think I've certainly honed my resilience skills during COVID in terms of just trying to keep yourself positive, channel all that positivity. For me, it's channeling the positivity into the work. And that also helps me to get in the right mindset to kind of be creative and think about kind of how I want to present the work and try and keep my mental health in a positive place. These interviews have certainly helped me a lot in doing that. And I have to say, there are times when I'm just like, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like washing my hair, and I don't feel like being in public. I don't feel like being on. And you do it, and at 11 o'clock I'm on, and 11:01 I'm totally engaged in the conversation. By 12 o'clock I'm pumped and psyched and positive and so happy I had the conversation and feel very motivated to continue in the studio. So that's been really, really great. For me, and for a lot of the artists too, it's about saying yes to things that scare you. Like, there's been a number of artists who were able to kind of do things that at the time they said yes to, and then they were like, I don't even know how I'm delivering it. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. So that was kind of another really important lesson learned. And I guess one of the other ones is really just self-care. Like, that came up through a lot. A lot of artists are juggling, raising children, looking after parents, having another full-time job, kind of financial challenges with trying to do the shows. Then with the shows shutting down during COVID, how do you kind of continue your practice? How do you continue kind of connecting with your audiences? And so that was kind of a really critical piece as well. So what I thought I would do is, if anybody wants to kind of ask to join me, kind of come and talk about maybe a little bit about your practice, maybe a little bit about business tips that you have found that has worked out, or ask me a question. This is kind of an open forum, so hopefully there's someone out there who's interested in knowing anything. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about. Lisa Hickey, I know you're online, and you've been a guest, so you could totally come on again. So what my other goals are in terms of continuing to do this is we'll kind of I'll have to see. Well, I guess when I run out of guests, I'll have to stop doing the show. But I'm hoping that isn't the case. I am pretty much caught up on these episodes on YouTube, and getting close to getting them caught up on podcasts. I know a lot of people talked about the fact that they really wanted to listen, like they listened in their studio versus watched. So that has helped me kind of transition a little bit, typically into, I don't usually formally address comments that come through as I'm doing the interviews, although I do keep an eye on them and work those questions in. But that was really because I wanted really the audio to stand on its own so that when it was a podcast, then people could still get a lot out of it. So I really invite you to sign up or subscribe to the podcast, which is obviously Talking to Artists, and also to kind of maybe sign up for the video. Okay, it looks like I've convinced Lisa to join. For all, we don't know what's going to happen, which is kind of fun. I sort of like that serendipity of not knowing what's going to happen. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Happy 100.
Thank you. Is it awesome? I just can't believe I actually got to 100.
Oh, I can. And you know what? I've got to say, yesterday I was feeling, I'm just coming off of COVID myself. My dog's saying hi here. So I'm feeling a little, I'm dragging and I'm trying to recover. And yesterday, to get inspired in the studio, I actually re-listened to a bunch of the really early episodes that you recorded way back when. So I think I listened to episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. It was so lovely. So hang on one sec. Hey, come here. There, this one wants to say hi to the world. There we go. There's Frankie.
Hey, beautiful.
So I think what I want to let you know, because I know sometimes throughout this you sort of think, oh, should I keep doing this? And who's out there and who's listening? So I don't know, for someone like me who's working alone in the studio, I was feeling like I was really dragging and really uninspired yesterday. And I put on these older interviews from 2 years ago. And after an hour, I was feeling great. I was feeling like, I had purpose and I love what I'm doing. And of course I'm doing this. And I felt so inspired. So keep doing them because they're really, really, really inspiring. And for anyone else who's listening out there, go back and listen to the older ones in the archive because they're great. They're full of little gems.
Yeah, well, I think I'm glad you say that because there's been times when I've sort of thought, like, is it even worth it? Because they're a lot of work. I mean, this part is kind of the fast part. It's an hour, but then by the time you kind of upload them to YouTube and editing them for video is I've actually had to outsource some of that because I couldn't keep up. And it's like at least 3 or 4 hours per episode. So I've always think about, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? So
I think
it's always kind of.
I really think it is. I mean, yesterday I was listening to your interview with Helen Utzel, your sister, and I don't know, by the end of it, I had all these ideas of what to do to kind of get myself rolling. And I even did a little meditation because she had suggested that and how helpful it was for her. And it really did help me get focused. So I don't know, it's kind of a way of having a community around you when you can't, just listening to everyone's voices while I was in the studio. I listened to Marianne's episode as well, and it got me really inspired to paint big. And I am working on a huge painting right now. You can see it in the background there.
Oh, beautiful.
So listening to Marianne's episode just really got me fired up about working large, and it just reminds you there's community out there.
Yeah, and I think especially during COVID, that was important. And
Totally.
One of the things that I've really, really kind of enjoyed too is I've interviewed people obviously from across Canada, from the US, from the UK, from Australia, from India. And so that's really been kind of cool too. So your network kind of can expand globally as well as just.
Okay, well, so now since it's 100 episodes, I've got to think of something to ask you because I've got to put you on the spot. You've been putting us all on the spot for all these episodes.
I try hard not to put anybody on the spot.
No. It's always a very easy conversation. It's wonderful. But okay, so let me ask you, Kate, out of these 100 episodes, without thinking about it too much, what is one of the best moments that comes to mind out of the 100 episodes? What stands out for you as sort of, let's call it a light bulb moment for you when you were talking to someone?
I think it's less a specific episode and more when the conversations really go someplace that's not even necessarily art related, but is really personally related. Corinne Kokolakis talked a lot about motherhood and juggling motherhood and using her art to kind of explore that kind of angst a little bit as her children, as her daughter especially, was growing up and growing apart from her as a mother, which she knows is a part of her life that's really important, but there's also part of you that misses it, Sherry Hart also is very open about dealing with sort of her issues that kind of come through on the art and how she uses art to combat some of those sort of experiences. I think some of the other ones I found the woman from India was really fascinating because it was such an incredibly different lifestyle and a different life than anything that I knew. And so it was really nice and interesting to hear, that she felt compelled to be a doctor, but she really wanted to be an artist, and kind of that balancing those two needs, between commitment to community and commitment to yourself.
So it sounds like almost the doorway that the interview allows you into someone's life, that a little bit of inside the art and maybe behind the art, what's going on in the artist's life. It sounds like some of these insights have come through in the interviews.
Yeah, like I feel like it's kind of, you ask artists what they're inspired by. I mean, and so many of us are inspired by nature because, we live in an awesome place, and, that's kind of an easy thing to be inspired by. But the reality is that what makes your art different than my art that's inspired by nature is really what you are as a person and what's going on in your life. And, I think those things do kind of come out in a way that for some people, they use art to paint kind of angst and stuff like that. The interview with Michael Wills was really interesting too, because he, was a hockey player, very successful in that career, decided to do art, which was very not macho. He had to deal with a lot of these stereotypes and use his art to kind of talk through some of that stuff, which again, I thought was really, I was really honored that people felt comfortable enough to be that honest.
That's awesome.
And to share some of their information and their kind of what they're going through.
Yeah. Well, and I think, as you're sort of talking about these things, it is sort of a unique thing that you offer us as well, to be able to think about that and be open about that, because generally we're just working away, we're kind of in our heads and doing our own thing. And I think it's a good exercise for us as artists to even think about those things and to kind of be prompted to dig a little deeper. Because we don't always necessarily go there. I don't wake up and think, okay, what's behind the layers today of what I'm going to be doing? Why am I choosing these colors? And why am I moving this way on the canvas? So I do think it helps our practice to go there every now and then.
And I think we do a lot of that subconsciously anyway. Like a lot of artists are like, oh, I paint intuitively. I'm like, well, you paint intuitively, but there's a lot of skill behind that. There's color matching behind that, but there's also kind of the feeling that you're feeling that is coming through in what you're creating, right? And it's not always conscious.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's nice to make it conscious sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the converse of that, if I can have another minute, is this okay?
Sure.
Okay, great.
This is open. I haven't really planned anything.
Okay. So the other side of that coin. So we've got like some of the nicest moments, some of the cool light bulb moments, the inspiring moments. Have there ever been any epic flops or like big silences? Is there anything where you think back over these 100 episodes and you just sort of blush because you think, I can't believe that happened?
Well, there are a couple, and it's funny. Not. I don't think hopefully epic fails, but ones that in some cases, I knew the artists. I had been to their shows. We'd done shows together. We talked about them. And so at the very beginning, I tended to do, I tend not to do a huge amount of prep because I don't want it to be scripted. I want it to be really authentic. Mm-hmm. And I want to stay as a really engaged listener. I don't want to be thinking about my next question. That said, I usually do go on their website and write a couple of, bullet point notes so that if this conversation stalled, I can kind of get it going. At the beginning, there were a couple of people I interviewed who I knew quite well and I had lots of conversations with, assumed I'd have no problem chatting, and they just kind of froze on camera. So they were much shyer and much more reserved and answered in really short questions. They were a little bit more difficult interviews to do.
Which is kind of opposite of what you would think. Someone you would think, no problem, this is just going to flow.
Exactly. And then there have been other people I've asked to be interviewed, and they kind of say, well, they're not comfortable with their accents or their language skills. And that's interesting too, because it's like, wow, I've never had a problem talking to them in real life. I've never even noticed that there is an issue, but it's something that they're uncomfortable with. So obviously I'm not going to push them, but yeah, they're great artists, and I'd love to kind of learn a bit more about their practice and their inspirations.
Yeah. So no major bloopers or anything like that. You've never had to edit out any, I don't know.
Well, the bloopers are usually me, so those are the ones that have to get edited out.
I know. I was going to say, do you have to edit out language? But the F-bombs always come from you, Kate.
I know. I try so hard, and it's so funny because I make lists to myself, like, no F-bombs, which is pretty pathetic. I have to actually say that. Talk slowly, because that's the other thing. And I still seem the problem is I get so engaged in the conversation, I kind of forget all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of it, though. And listening to the older ones, I kind of love that you can hear the construction in the background. And I kind of love the atmospheric stuff. It doesn't really bother me because it just makes it so real, a little less studio, a little more real, and it makes you feel that much closer. So I don't think those are anything to worry about. It's kind of charming.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's charming when you can see, when you're visual, you've got the visual and then you've got the hearing in the background. When you're just listening to the audio in the podcast, I've had a number of people that kind of have complained about that because they find it distracting. Okay. And it's really hard for, like my husband Rob's been doing a lot of the editing. Yeah. And so it's hard for him to edit out that stuff. Yeah, so I can see that. Sure. I kind of try not to, but yeah, it's been sort of, it's been interesting. The other time I've also had people that just, they talk and talk and talk with awesome stories, but in the mean, I'm like, oh my God, I want to explore that. Oh, I'd like to ask a question about that, but there's not an ability to get a word in edgewise. I'm
probably guilty of that. And I'll say sorry, Rob, right now for the dog barking because that'll be hard to edit out.
And my coughing too, since I've had COVID, so I don't know. There's going to have to be a cough elimination button there.
These will be really timely to listen to in 10 years. We'll be going, oh yeah, that was during the global pandemic, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that definitely is, that's the other thing too, is that so many of the early ones were about COVID and how you're acting as COVID. And then I got to the point where I'm kind of like, they're starting, I didn't want them to be the same or feel like they were repetitious. And so I tended not to ask that question after a while because I was trying to make the interviews a little bit timeless. So they were just as relevant now. And like you were saying, you go back, almost 2 years, right? And listen to them then, and there's still stuff you can talk about. And I was very grateful to the early people, like my sister and Mary Johnson, who, I just basically were my guinea pigs because I'm like, I don't know how to do this.
It's fun. It's just
one of the reasons. Sorry.
It's just so much fun.
Well, I was going to say one of the reasons I did it live too, because a lot of people said, well, I don't know why you wouldn't do it like with Zoom call and then you can edit it. And I just know myself, and I know that I would just be so critical of everything I said and how I sounded, and that I would actually get to the point where I would never actually release them. Yeah. Totally. And so I find in some ways going live, and especially at the beginning where everyone was kind of fooling around with technology and there were lots of screw ups, I thought like no one's really going to judge me for screwing up the audio. And I just kind of feel like for me that just makes it's fun. It's a conversation. It's done. Like I'm not having to ponder over it and think about how I said things or how I questioned things or was my language correct or all that kind of stuff, which I know would just make me not do it. Right.
It's interesting that you say that because going live, I've never done that on my Instagram. I've never ever done it except for in these sort of interviews with you. So I do feel terrified to ever hit that live button on my own, but it feels way less scary when I'm doing it with you. So there must be something to be said.
Well, that's good.
Partners in crime, I guess. Okay, so before I let you go, one more question. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite parts of the interviews has become the very end when you ask people, okay, if money was no object and you didn't have to worry about anything, what would be your big hairy ass goal? And I love hearing this because it varies. Some people say I want to show at the Louvre. Some people say I want my own home backyard studio. It ranges from huge to small dreams. So I'm wondering, what's Kate Taylor's big hairy ass goal?
Well, I have to tell you, this came from years and years ago when I had my marketing firm. I went to it was like a business building seminar. And one of the things they kind of said is, you obviously have to put goals in place. And it's always good to have a hairy ass goal that you probably realistically won't achieve, but it allows you to keep moving in the forward in the distance. So at that time, I was really just starting my art practice in a more formalized way. And so it actually was to have a solo show at the MoMA.
Oh my God, amazing.
And part of it was like, okay, I'm likely never going to get there, but you never know because I'm an optimist, Right. But I think that it kind of keeps your vision and your head in the right space to kind of have something to go towards, which is a long range goal. Yeah. And I'm personally quite goal oriented. Like I have a business plan. I've got my revenue, you know that because we talk about it, my revenue targets, and absolutely. I track what's doing well, what's not doing well. And I think that definitely helps me with the business part of it. I also find it actually kind of an intellectual challenge. I like that part of the business. Yeah. And so, who knows? Maybe when I'm 80, I'll have my solo show at the MoMA.
Okay. So is your goal the same as when you were starting out? Would you say that's still your, or has
I think it is
at all?
Well, I had smaller goals. Like one of the goals was to was to make enough money from selling my art to be able to actually afford to do things like these international shows
Yeah.
and to support myself and to be able to take. I've always been the kind of person who's like say yes, even if I don't know exactly how I'm going to execute. And having the financial ability from selling enough work to be able to say yes has been really helpful.
Yeah,
Not only to move the business forward, but also to build your practice.
totally.
My goal was to be able to do shows in the U.S., to travel for art. I've done that. So a lot of the goals I've had, I've actually kind
That's
of been
amazing.
luckily I've been
Crushing the
successful.
goals. Just crushing, crushing, crushing.
So
That's
I need to
fantastic.
make new goals now.
Yeah.
I need to have a goal that's realistic between where I am now and the moment. So
Yeah,
that's my
yeah,
next goal.
yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking too, things have really shifted for you over the last 3 years from working in a home studio at home in Toronto to opening a beautiful studio space that I was once upon a time a part of and was amazing
Yeah.
at Art Alchemy.
You were the first alchemist.
It was incredible, and I really miss that. I crave that, and I'm gonna seek that out again very soon. So from working from home in your home studio, opening Art Alchemy and having a beautiful group space, to working at a studio cottage, or sorry, a cottage studio,
Yep.
and now a bit of a fusion of all three. So things have really
Yep.
evolved for you in terms of your studio practice over the last 3 years.
Yeah, it has. It has. And I've been busy, which
Yeah.
is good. But I'm also now at that point where I realize I need to start to outsource some things because
Yeah.
it's becoming stressful. I can't keep up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interviews. There's a few interviews I'm going to go back to and re-listen to for people that have been successful in doing that and
Well,
being able
interesting
to.
because the interview I listened to with Marianne, she talked about having a student who was helping her wire, do the sides. This student she had outsourced a lot of the less creative work, the necessary mundane stuff to a student. And she
Yeah.
said she was loving that, and it was really freeing her up to work on the
Yeah.
creative part of her practice.
And I would love to do that too. Part of the great thing about having three studios is to be able to work in everywhere I am.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, I don't have that consistency.
Yeah.
I haven't actually consistently worked at Art Alchemy myself for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to get back to that consistency where I actually can have somebody that kind of comes in and is able to do something. Like I hate edges and wiring. I'm sure everybody does. I try everything possible not to have to wire my stuff, but eventually you have to. So.
Oh, I hear that. I hear that. Okay, one more thing before I let you go.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you listening to right now in the studio to get your groove on while you paint? Because I did share a studio with you, and I know you have very varied and eclectic taste. So right now, what's your number one song to listen to in the studio?
Oh, I'm so boring. I'm so old. Like I find that the music I often listen to, I like to sing
Yes,
when I'm listening, when I'm painting. And so therefore I tend to go to songs that I've known for years because I know the words to.
Yeah.
Recently I just watched a documentary on Gordon Lightfoot, and I just really loved his work. So I've kind of been listening to his stuff, but it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm on the radio, I'll listen to a song I like. I Spotify or SoundHound the artist, and I download like 5 or 6 songs from that same artist, even if I don't know them, just to kind of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, get in the right groove. Right now.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm in this pandemic Steely Dan groove. I think I don't know what to listen to, and then I think I know Steely Dan, and it gets me in the groove every time.
Oh, I know. I'm like that too. Like, so it's like, oh, I think I need to listen to Grapes of Wrath or Rem or REM or something like that. Like, it's kind of like the old stuff that you can kind of, I don't know. I think it does put you mentally into a headspace maybe that was a different, happier maybe part of your life while you're kind of dealing with COVID.
I think you're right. Yeah. All right, Kate. Well, thank you for letting me bounce on and ask you all these questions. It's fun to be on the other side of the interview. And happy 100. We will all keep listening as long as you keep going.
Okay. Well, that would be great. I'd love that. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Lisa. Good to see you.
Okay. See you later.
Yeah. All right. And we'll see if anybody else. Oh, looks like Carolyn Laidliarn is invited. Wants to come on. So we'll invite Carolyn on. See what she has to say. She's another one, a person I interviewed. We did have kind of Wi-Fi issues with Carolyn's interview. So that's another one that sometimes it doesn't work. Hey, how are you?
Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you doing today?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good. So happy 100. That is the accomplishment. That's amazing.
Crazy, huh?
Really great.
Thanks.
So I
Yeah.
remember I was one of the first ones that you interviewed, probably in the first half dozen. And
Yeah.
remember that interview?
I do, because we did it in your backyard studio. We had Wi-Fi issues and phone calls that
Well,
came in.
that's not the one I'm thinking of. The one I'm thinking of is the one that you were in the hospital.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because we did the
Yeah.
second one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
That was crazy. And
Yeah. It was a crazy one because I was, as people may have known at that time, I was in the hospital and I had, they didn't know what was wrong with me. They knew it was respiratory in the middle of COVID. So I was actually in isolation. So I had this room with a bathroom to myself in the hospital, but I actually felt totally fine. So you kind of get a bit stir crazy. So I thought, well, I'll do the interview from the hospital bed because I knew no one was going to interrupt me because I was in isolation. They had to dress in like the double masks and the double gowns and everything. And so they basically said, you look like you're fine. So we're not going to pop in regularly and see you. So I thought, yeah, let's do the interview.
yeah, that was really crazy. And I think we talked about health and safety and, different things that artists were subjected to, but that was good for you to keep them going. I don't think you've missed too many weeks, but that was pretty noble of you to do it from the hospital.
Thanks. Yeah, the only time I missed a few. I tried really hard not to miss them, just because part of it was I wanted to build a consistency, but part of it is that for myself too. I wanted to not slide. But in April of this year, I had 4 shows, 3 art fairs. It was just, and I was actually setting up on those days in the morning, and I just thought it's just too much. So
Yeah.
I did cancel a few of them, and I think also during the one of a kind, I did one as well because I was actually on site, but.
So you really
I don't
can say no.
know. That is a problem of mine. Yes,
Yeah.
earlier when I said say yes, yes, as you know me, right? It's just like, oh, that sounds like fun. Let's do that
Oh,
without thinking about,
absolutely.
okay.
Well, I think it's been great, and I would second what Lisa says that it's been wonderful to have your interviews as a resource to be able to go back to them. I think it's really incredible that you've brought out so many artists and really uncovered so many really neat things that everybody can benefit from. So I
Cool.
have a question for you. One of the things that really surprised me during COVID was that you moved to the cottage. You're usually a very social person. I would say as probably a city girl. And you moved there and just lived there and you loved it. And I guess my question would be that if you had to pick living in the city or living at the cottage and you could only pick one, but you could still do all of the other stuff. You could still travel and you could still do other things. Which one would you choose?
That's a really, really hard question. I mean, I did love living at the cottage during COVID. It was a really unique opportunity to be up in a place that I love for a long period of time. But one of the reasons it was easy to get into that groove is because Toronto was so shut down. There was really nothing happening here. So I wasn't missing anything in Toronto. Like couldn't go to the theater. I couldn't go to the openings. I couldn't go to nice restaurants, so it was kind of like I may as well just chill there at the cottage. And I still would be torn. Like the cottage is definitely a great place for inspiration. I miss the people though. I miss just being able to, I don't know, pop into a show or getting together for a coffee without it being planned. Everything at the cottage has to be planned. They were so far away. You can't just casually and spontaneously do things. It has to be kind of planned. Whereas I kind of like in the city, there's a bit more spontaneity. Although I have to say, I have to get myself back into the zone and the habit of being spontaneous because for so long, it hasn't been that way.
Yes.
So I don't know if I can answer that question. I think I will always have one foot in each because I love the energy of the city and I love the tranquility of the cottage. And I feel for me, I kind of need both of those.
Well, that's what I sort of expected. But had COVID not happened, I don't know that you'd be so engaged with the cottage.
I think I'm engaged at a very emotional level because I've been going up there for 50 years. Like most of my life, that's been the place where our family has been together. And, we go and we paint and we swim and we, make things out of birch bark, that kind of stuff. But I think that a combination of now it being my own, my husband and I bought it from my parents, and being able to spend so much time up there, I definitely feel more connected to it in a different way.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Absolutely. Well, I will hop off because I know there's probably one or two people that also want to jump in. But
Cool.
thank you very much for doing this. And you always do so much for the art community, and it's really, really appreciated.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on board.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. All right, let's see if there's somebody else who wants to join. Oh, I've got to look at my glasses so I can see. Oh, Julia Veenstra. I wish I didn't have to wear my glasses. It really sucks. Okay, I don't know if I screwed that up. Hey, beautiful.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Congratulations. This is one of those days like I did not do my hair. And then it's like Kate Taylor went live and she's inviting people. I'm like, oh gosh.
I know. Well, it's so funny because during COVID, living at the cottage too in the winter, it's just like you have to really plan when you wash your hair because of the power and the, you don't want the pipes to freeze. So it was kind of like, okay, and one Thursday I have to look at least half decent, so I can go live.
It's true.
Which is pretty pathetic.
It's true. And congratulations on your 100th.
Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty wild. You kind of start. Originally I figured I might do a dozen and then I would run out of friends that would be willing to do this with me.
No,
So I think that's been pretty awesome.
As we know, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of artists.
Yeah, but not all are willing to do this without a structure. Like, the fact that it's not structured, and I do actually always offer that I can talk to someone ahead of time,
Yeah.
If they're more comfortable, but it doesn't have a lot of structure. For some people, they're kind of nervous with that. But I'm actually, probably today and tomorrow, I'm going to put together a bit of a schedule to interview some of the artists that are doing the Square Foot Show, the Abstract Square Foot Show. So that will be kind of fun too, probably shorter interviews, but I really like it.
Everybody has such an interesting story because, like Lisa, often will put your program on while I'm just listening in the studio because I can paint and listen, but I can't paint and watch.
Yeah.
So it's really been a joy, and I've learned so many little tips from people, and even just their practices because we're really curious about artists, and even as artists we're curious about other artists. And so my big question to you, which you probably always get, is like, how the heck do you have all this energy? Because everybody's like, how does Kate do all these things that Kate does? And it's crazy. I see all the things you do and the things you organize, and I know I sat over a mimosa with you and went, what the heck? Like, what are you going to give up, girlfriend, to, and then you're like, I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
I know. Well, I think one of the things is that I do know that I've started creating a spreadsheet of all the things I actually could outsource. So that's kind of part of it. One of the things that's kind of, I always think that your weaknesses are also your strengths. They're like flip side of it. It's the same coin, right? So one of my strengths is I think I'm a risk taker, and I'm happy to try something new, even if I haven't quite figured out how to get there yet, which means I say yes a lot to things I haven't fully thought through, right?
Yeah.
The reverse of that is sometimes I haven't thought it through. So then I'm kind of like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I don't have enough time, but I've made this commitment now and I've made these goals. And so therefore I've got to deliver on them. Well, a lot of times that helps.
You know what? I was listening to, is it, I want to say philosophy or just personality type person who advised, if you want a busy person to help you with something, you cannot ask them the week before because they know they're busy. They know they're busy next week. They'll say no. But if you said, oh, Kate, can you write a book for me for next November? You're like, oh, sure.
Yeah, that's totally me. Don't ask me that, okay?
And you say, yes. And you'll be like, oh, I can fit that in because like next week, things should lighten up. And they never do. They never lighten up. But then I've got you committed. And then you will fit it in. But so they always say, never ask a busy person to do something next week, but totally get them for 6 months from now.
That's very true. Yeah, actually, I would totally agree with that. And then the reality is that I almost never I don't want to say all, I say almost because I don't want to be sort of like 100% miss my deadlines, because I know well enough how fast I can work and what I can do and what I can shift around to make that, to deliver that book 6 months from now. But you're right. And that also makes some people nervous because they're kind of like, well, what are you doing now? And what's your update and what's your status? I'm like, just trust me, it'll be done. If I say it's going to be done, it's going to be done. It just might be last minute.
Yeah, I did a little TikTok about and a reel about like showing no progress pictures. And I'm like, no, you cannot have progress pictures because, the stages that I'm at, and sometimes I'm fast and I don't want them to know how fast I am. Or sometimes it's like, it's at the stage where you don't want to see it because you're going to wonder why you spent your money. And, so just trust the process, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And trust that
it's that gawky teenage stage, I would say,
That's right.
And I think, and some paintings do come out of you really quickly and fast, and they're right on the button and you love them. And other ones just take more time and thinking and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And have you had fun with this?
I have. Yeah. It's been really wonderful. I'm a people person, so I love talking to people. I love learning what makes them tick. So that, for me, that's gratifying already. I've also just really enjoyed being able to reach out to artists that I don't know, like Julie Whitney Barnes does cyanotypes, and they were beautiful and they were fascinating. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to reach out and see if she wants to chat, and she did. And it was really great. So there's been a couple of people like that I've just really enjoyed because of the fact that it's just, I don't know them. And now I feel like I have a little bit of a relationship with them,
That's right. And it's really generous of you to share all this information with everybody and your time. Because I have asked Kate, like, are you getting paid for anything? Are you making any money from this? Like, I'm not her business coach because she certainly knows her business, but I am an art business coach, and I do enjoy, challenging and asking. And Kate is just one of the most generous people. So I think you all should subscribe to her YouTube channel. Let's get it up there because on YouTube, she could make some money if she had enough views. Instagram doesn't pay Canadians. TikTok doesn't pay Canadians, but YouTube does. So Kate, what is your YouTube channel? Is it Kate Taylor Art?
Yep. YouTube.com/Kate Taylor Art. I tried to make it super easy.
So go put it on and listen to it for hours. Let it run overnight because then she'll get some.
I definitely need you as a business coach. I'm terrible. I have to say I'm terrible. I'm unfortunately not very money motivated. So it's kind of like, I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun. And that's kind of where it ends.
Yeah, but you'll get that. You said to me when we last had lunch that your husband is retiring and he's going to be starting to work with you on your YouTube channel and stuff too. So that's going to be a great lift.
Yeah, so he's already starting, and I've actually outsourced some of the editing to Roz Herman's husband. He's doing some of it too for me because I just couldn't keep up, and I was feeling like, my podcast was like 40 episodes behind my, my actual pod reel. So I'm getting closer.
Yeah,
so it'll be good.
And that student, if you ever get an intern or something, so I this is my advice. So I had somebody phone me and say, they'd like to be my intern for the summer. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, do I have enough for anybody to do? And we established that I'd have them for 3 days. Within 2 weeks, I'm like, can you do like
I need you 5
days? Can you do 6 days? Like, what do you mean you need tomorrow off?
Yeah. Oh, I know. And that's why I did a spreadsheet because I'm like, I don't think there's a lot that I can outsource. I'm like, oh, there's like a shit ton of stuff I can outsource.
That's brilliant because I kind of go by the seat of my pants for the day. Like, what can we do today? And I think a spreadsheet would be very handy. That shows your business acumen. Like, you get it written down.
Well, otherwise I forget it. No, that also shows my age, right? Like, if it's written down, then I remember it.
It's true. It's true. Well, congratulations. And it's a joy being your friend.
I love being your friend too. And I'm looking forward to doing this abstract square foot show together.
Oh my gosh.
It'll be great.
You have brought such energy to Square Foot Show, and the artists that you've brought in. It's so exciting every day to see what they're posting. And they're all, the abstract artists seem to know how to do reels more than the landscape artists. It's interesting. Here's a challenge if anybody's watching.
Okay.
So
well, we'll up the challenge rate on that then.
That's right. That's right. The abstract artists are doing a great job presenting themselves.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the final
And
work.
then you and
Some of
I,
it's starting to come in now.
and then you and I are doing a couple of lives specifically to talk about abstract coming up, right? So I'm really curious
Yes.
because I'm not even in the show because I don't know how to do it. And I want to hear from you everything you know.
Ooh, that could be scary. Put me on the spot, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Everything you know, teach everybody how to look at an abstract. So that's coming up too.
Yep.
You just do a lot.
Well, you got to keep the day busy.
So everybody follow her on YouTube and then just play it for hours so she gets, paid.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks, Julia.
All right, sweet pea. We'll talk to you later.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye. I don't know how to
Bye.
leave. How do I leave?
Oh, I don't know. Let me see if I can kick you out. Am I successful? Oh,
I think,
no, I only know how to ask you to join, not how to kick you out.
did I leave or did I just turn off my camera?
No, you just turned off your video.
I'm just gonna exit completely and come back.
Okay. That's hilarious. Okay, so we are live. If anybody else wants to join me, just to kind of, oh, someone's written a note here. Looking forward to the abstract. Yeah, me too. That sounds, it'll be great. It'll be really fun. So yeah, if anybody else wants to join me, ask some questions, talk about their life, cool with that. We have only about 10 minutes left, but it should be fun. One of the other episodes I wanted to really say got a lot of coverage. And this particular woman, she also really leveraged this interview to build her own business too, which I think is something that a lot of artists could do. They could take these interviews. I know Marianne has done that. She's posted it on her website to be able to kind of leverage it. But it was Joanne Pollock who does art mentorship. So she actually really used it to, I'm just going to bring, she used the interviews to be able to build her business and to expose what she does to more artists in a way that was kind of really, again, a casual conversation. Hello.
Hi, Kate.
How are you?
You know what? I just wanted to take this moment to say thank you to you because you have been such an inspiration. I met you at the Riverdale Art Walk, and before that, I had a conversation with you on the phone. And I can say truly that you are the most generous artist I have ever met. With her time, with her experience, with the crazy stuff that you managed to do, I can't believe where you find the time and how you can be so giving. And I, as a human being, I truly, truly respect and admire that. And I've asked you to mentor me. You know, I will go into a mentorship program if you put it out there because you know what? You're an inspiration, and I just wanted to take a moment to share that with everybody who's listening. And I'm super excited to be in the Square Foot Show with you because I'm like, wow, Kate Taylor. I mean, I just totally.
You're gonna totally embarrass me now.
No. You know what? It's from my heart. I mean, I don't say things just randomly. It's really truly from my heart. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for putting yourself out there. Thank you for sharing your talent. Thank you for sharing all that you are as a human being, because it's not just about art and it's not just about a business. It's actually about the human connections that we make. I feel that art is a way to connect us as human beings, especially with abstract art. I think it's a different level of connection you have to build with someone because it's not just something that's representational and you take it in for the beauty of it. It's more deeper than that, right? And I think with abstract art, because you have to look deeper, the connections are deeper. And I'm not justifying it in any way, and I'm not like biased or anything like that. But yeah, I just truly thank you so much. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to...
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've been playing around with doing a mentoring program for a long time, but I do sometimes get to that point where I know where I've hit my limit, and right now I need to figure out what I can get rid of to be able to bring something like that on board. Because if I was going to do a mentoring program, I would really want it to be awesome.
Yes, and it will be. You're awesome, so it'll be awesome for sure.
Well, thank you.
For sure. But yeah, I'm on your yay team, go Kate team.
Well, thank you.
It's
good to get the feedback.
And for all the other abstract artists out there, I think it's a difficult path, more so than representational. I'm experiencing that, but it's good to get the encouragement from someone like you to continue on a path and this journey. So thank you for that.
Good. Well, may your what's your hairy ass goal? What's your big hairy ass goal?
You know what? Yeah, I want my art to be in homes that love abstract work, and I just want to connect with people and actually build an emotional relationship with my work. You know, I just want it to be whoever buys it, whoever looks at it, I want them to feel something. And that is my, and you know, if it can spread, the more it can spread, the greater it is. But yeah, you know, solo shows, sure, why not? You know, be international, sure, why not? You know, but all of that is in the goal world. But for now, you know, this is just the beginning of my journey. So, yeah, I'll get it.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad to be part of the beginning of your journey, and hopefully you're super successful. I'm sure you will be.
Thank you so much for your kind word and encouragement, and for just being you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That just got me all embarrassed.
Oh no. I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. No, but you know, just through your charm and your personality and your generosity, I think that has truly taken me aback and go, wow, I can't believe this woman, with the level that she's at in her career, that she is so kind. It's just, to me, that means a lot. So I just wanted to say that to you. All right.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now. Take care. How do I leave this? Do I just?
I think you actually have to, have to get out of Instagram. I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
I haven't quite figured out that part, and I don't seem to be able to get rid of you on this end.
Okay, no worries. Then I will say goodbye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so she does bring up a point that one of my mantras, as people who know me know, is always like a rising tide floats all boats. And I really believe that as artists support other artists, as we help each other, that helps the whole community kind of expand and get better and rise up. So hopefully you guys will also think about how you can give back to your art community, or even just spending the time with one artist, especially an emerging artist who's a little bit nervous about making that next step. I think it's something that we as more established artists can do to help our community, and I think it's pretty awesome. So I have time for one more person if anybody else wants to join, or if not, then I'll just kind of, I guess, go, because I'm running out of things to say. Oh, I did want to say that next week I'm really excited. I haven't actually done the ad card yet, but I'm going to be interviewing Elias, who is the person who does all of the advertising and the marketing and the social media and the reels for the Julia Veenstra Square Foot shows. So he's going to come and give us lots of tips on how to leverage our social media, on how to really kind of build our presence and build authentic relationships online that will then lead to sales online or sales in shows. So I'm really excited about that. So that's coming up. I've got a number of other artists who I'll be doing interviewing the Square Foot Show artists, the number of artists who want to participate in that. Those will be probably short 15-minute videos. Not sure if I'm going to do them with Talking to Artists or a different forum. Figure that stuff out yet. But if you are also ever interested in being a guest, please reach out and we can talk it through a little bit. It's basically, if you've seen any of the episodes, you know that my goal is not to ask scary questions, and really just to allow an opportunity to have a conversation that is authentic, as if we were just sitting across the kitchen table with a glass of wine. That's kind of always my goal. So I want to thank everybody for participating, and it would be great if you could share these interviews with your friends, if you could subscribe on my youtube.com/KateTaylorArt, and you should be able to get the podcast Talking to Artists anywhere you get your podcasts. I know for sure Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and a lot of the main ones. And if you can subscribe to that too, that would be great. It would really help me. As Julia said, I don't make any money on it, but one of the reasons I do this is my Rising Tides philosophy. I would love to share the knowledge of other artists with other artists so that we can all become more successful in what we do, help us become inspired, help lift us up when we're feeling down. And that's kind of really what the goal of this Talking to Artists is about. So if you can help me do that, that would be awesome. So thank you so much. Have a great day, and we will see you next week when we talk to Elias. Bye.